So, what if you wrote a sci-fi novel about a disembodied mind creating music, and then a decade later, you kind of became that mind, using AI to turn your own fiction into reality? Well, this isn't science fiction. It's the absolutely wild story of an artist who literally wrote his future into existence.
One critic put it perfectly. They said the story of Jeffrey A. Brick and his AI-generated album Detroit is the terrifying, beautiful realization of a prophecy Brick wrote a decade prior. I mean, think about that. This is a case of life not just imitating art, but actually fulfilling its destiny. And this is where it gets really mind-bending. See, back in his 2017 novel, he imagined this character who escapes a failing body by uploading his brain and then just creates music as pure consciousness. So, fast forward to 2026, and what does he do? He releases Detroit, a real album made with AI that does almost the exact same thing. He wasn't just predicting the future, he was basically writing the blueprint for his own art. So who is this person at the center of this crazy loop of art and tech? To really get the music, I think we first have to understand the man behind the algorithm. Okay, so Jeffrey A. Brick is a man of, let's just say, incredible contrasts. You'd never expect a project manager for the Affordable Care Act, dealing with federal bureaucracy all day, to also be an all-night video artist at raves, or an activist mime who promotes public health. But underneath it all, he had this deep, deep love for the pioneers of Detroit techno. These weren't separate lives, they were all just ingredients simmering for decades, waiting for the right moment to come together. And this image, this is actually the cover of his novel, and it gets right to the heart of his most unusual persona. He was inspired by this old silent film character, and so Brick would dress up as a mime, put these red medical crosses on his face, and just silently advocate at music festivals for things like healthcare and donating blood. It's this wild fusion of art, health, and activism that really is the core of his entire creative world.
You can really see how all these different threads start to weave together over the years. Back in the 80s, you've got the synth pop influence. By the 2010s, he's living this wild double life. Healthcare guy and rave VJ. Then in 2017, he channels all of that into his novel. And then finally, in 2026, the technology catches up to his imagination, and he's able to create Detroit with this AI engine called Suno V5.
So, how'd he do it? Well, this wasn't just about pushing a button and getting a song. For Brick, the AI wasn't just a tool, it was a partner, a true ghost in the machine. The tech he used is called Suno V5, and basically it's an AI that makes music from text prompts. So you can think of it like describing a song that's in your head to this incredibly talented band. The vibe, the instruments, the feeling, and they just play it for you, perfectly. But for Brick, it wasn't a replacement for his own artistry. He calls it a conceptual partner, and I love this, a steel lung that allowed ideas he'd had for years to finally, breathe. And you don't have to take my word for it. Brick said it himself. A lot of these songs were years in the making conceptually, and with AI, I've finally been able to bring them to life as something you can actually listen to, not just ideas sitting in Ableton. So you see, the AI wasn't the creator, it was the key that finally unlocked the creation. But here's the thing, this technology doesn't exist in a vacuum. Right as Brick was having this incredible artistic breakthrough, the music industry basically declared war. Major record labels started suing AI developers, including Suno, for massive copyright infringement and voice cloning. So this deeply personal art project was born right in the middle of a huge legal and ethical battle over the future of music itself. So, what does this controversial, prophetic album actually sound like? Well, Detroit is way more than just a collection of songs. It's really an attempt at a sonic cartography, a musical map of the Motor City. A perfect example is the track A Heidelberg Story. This is a love letter to a real place, a Detroit art project where houses on this one decaying block were transformed into these polka-dotted, surreal art installations. The song really tries to capture that same feeling of mystery and memory. Brick is literally using sound to map the soul of the city. And the album has these moments of just wonderful, surreal humor. One critic pointed out the delightful absurdity of a track called Detroit Pie Guy. Just stop and think about that for a second. An artificial intelligence, a thing that cannot taste or feel hunger or know pleasure, is generating this passionate, perfect anthem to a thick-cut slice of pepperoni pizza. It's just so bizarre and brilliant. And as you look through the tracks, you see the layers of meaning he's building. Copperland Detroit digs into local history, connecting Michigan's copper mines to the rolling mill heartbeat of techno. 10 Cents takes a kid's nursery rhyme and twists it into this dark industrial folklore. And then you get to What Now, a song he literally pulled straight out of his own science fiction novel and made real. The whole project is constantly folding back in on itself. So, all of this, it brings us to the big question, right? What is the future of music? Is it man versus machine? Or is it something else entirely?
One analysis of Brick's work just frames the whole moment perfectly. It says, the landscape of popular music in the year 2026 is defined by an unprecedented crisis of authorship, a technological schism that has fractured the foundation of recorded audio. That's it. That's the core conflict we are all living through right now.
And that conflict, really, it's a tale of two sounds. On one side, you've got what you might call the human soul, that raw, unpredictable, beautifully imperfect sound of an artist wrestling with analog gear. And on the other, you have algorithmic perfection, the mathematically precise, clinically clean, flawless sound from a neural network. Can those two things even coexist? But, maybe that's the wrong question. Maybe the soul isn't in the tool, whether it's a synthesizer or an algorithm. As one writer suggests, the soul of the music stays in the human parts. The deep respect for history, the artistic choices, and that deep down, enduring human desire to build a sanctuary of sound. The human is still the architect. Which leaves us with a pretty fundamental question for this new era of art. When an artist and an algorithm team up to make music, where does the soul of the song really live?